All right, so let's have a look at the copy location constraint. I'm going to select my target, shift select my owner, Control Shift C and choose copy location. So here is our constraint. You see it's already set up this for us. Now the head or the tail is specific to this constraint. We can slide this along the head or the tail of our target bone, and that's what that one does. And this option here, it will go along the curved Bezier bone. Now if I enable it, you'll be like, how is it going off in space? But let me just show you in the different display mode. I'm going to choose B bone. You can see we've got a bendy bone here. And when we slide it along, it's actually going along the bendy bone. So that is what that little Bezier option does. Now the axis will let us decide which axis. So at the moment, it's going to follow along all axes. But if we disable the X axis, for example, it's no longer going to go left or right. It's just going to go on the other two axes. Now the invert should be pretty obvious. It's going to go in the opposite direction. So if we move it to the left, it's now going to go to the right, and we can enable or disable that for each of our axes. And the offset value here is going to use its own starting position before we copy that location. That's what those options do. And you already know about the different spaces. Now at the moment, the target is calculated in world space and the owner is also calculated in world space. But you have these options down here, which I've already explained, and the influence and the little X I've already explained in the overview video. Let's take a look at the copy rotation constraint. So this is very similar. I've just gone ahead and copying our rotation there. You can see it's going to follow the target. Now our options here, we can actually change the way that the rotation order is calculated. At the beginner level, just leave this to default, but just know that you can change the rotation order. Now rotation order is a pretty complicated thing, and I think I'll have to do a separate video that explains it, but it might not be in this course. It could be a standalone video or in an intermediate rigging course. Now these axes and invert functions work exactly the same way as a copy location constraint. Although our mix value here, we can actually decide how we want it to influence our owner. So we can actually replace whatever the rotations of our local bone are with this one here, or we can say, I want you to add it to it. So it's going to add the rotations, and you can still rotate this one freely because it's going to add its own rotations with the target rotations. Now, if you wondered why it went askew, that is because of our target space here. So if we have these both in local space, you'll see it's going to behave as you expect there. It's not going to jump to a different orientation. So that is the replace and the add. Now the offset value here, the legacy one, is just the old school version of the add. It is left in the code for backwards compatibility. So older rigs will still have this setting. And that's a way to keep them working rather than having rigs break all the time and you need to re-rig things. Now these settings here, before original and after original, are kind of more advanced features as well, but basically you can add those constraints like the target is a parent or a child. So before is a parent and after is a child, and that's just going to affect the way that they're added together. Now, as I said, that's probably more of an advanced feature. You'll find yourself using the replace or the add settings more often than not. And these settings down here, I've already explained. All right, let's have a look at the next constraint, which is the copy scale. So I'll just mute our rotation one for now. All of these work pretty much how you would expect. It's going to copy the scale of our target. We can choose the individual axes. Remember, these are calculated in the target and the owner space. So this means, let's go local space with the target and world space with the owner. So if we scale on the X, we're scaling on the local X, which is kind of skewed on this angle now, but it's scaling to the world X on our owner here. Let me just reset that. Now with this power setting, a setting of 1 means going to be a 1-for-1 copy, but let's just scale this bigger and then reduce this to 0.5, and it's going to only affect it to the power of 0.5. What I mean by that is just like in maths class, x to the power of 0.5. If we wanted to affect it more, you go to the power of 2 and you'll see it shoots off there. It's very similar to an influence, but you can lower it or raise it past the value of 1 as you just saw. Now the make uniform, this setting will mean that if you scale it on one individual axis, it's going to average those out and make it uniform across all three. Now the offset is going to use its own starting position, and that gives you the ability to freely scale it whereas if it wasn't offset, you can no longer scale it. It's going to copy whatever the target setting is. Now, when you enable this offset value, it's going to use multiplication, but if you wanted to use the addition, so it's going to add them together rather than multiplying them together, that is what this button here does. And as you can see from the tooltip, it is compatible with older versions of Blender, so the 2.7 series. And the rest of the settings here should already make sense to you. Now, the last constraint I want to show you in this video is the copy transforms. So basically, the copy transform is going to copy the location, the rotation, and the scale all in the one constraint. You do have the ability to offset it from the head or the tail, or use the Bezier, just like the copy location constraint. However, you can't choose the individual axes like like these other individual constraints. You can decide how you want it to be added, so whether you want it to replace or whether you want it to act as a child of the target or a parent of the target. However, the big difference is it's going to do the location, rotation, and scale all in the one constraint, but you can't turn off individual axes or invert them. So if you need to do anything like that, you need to break it up into these 3 constraints. But if you just wanted to copy along without having to add all these other ones, then you could just use this constraint here. It's going to make it a lot quicker and easier.